Yeah, and we are live right now. This is episode 8 of the Read the Manga podcast with Corey and Zach. He's Corey, I'm Zach. Today, we are going to be talking about the extremely influential horror shonen dark fantasy series Devilman and its kind of influence on subsequent mangas and its more recent Netflix adaptation, Devilman Crybaby. So, Devilman, I don't think either of us have read this since high school.
Oh yeah, that's an oldie.
Yeah, definitely. So did how did we first get into this? Did I show you this or did you show me this?
Nah, you showed me it.
Okay.
I think you heard Devilman Lady first.
Oh,
Honestly,
I forgot about Devilman Lady. That was a thing, wasn't it? It
yeah.
was like a retelling of it from a female perspective.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
just so you folks know, we will be discussing the series in decent amount of detail. So if you aren't familiar with it and you want to hear about it, cool. But if you don't want spoilers, then go
Yeah,
check it out and then hop back on over here.
this is the wrong place to be if you don't want watch spoilers. And what's kind of weird about it is that like how I always bitch about the shitty quality of scans.
Yeah,
So fucking I actually the scans like the translations in this were pretty shitty, but I think it actually kind of complemented the art style. Like it all kind of like the bad translations almost made me feel like I was watching like an old school anime like Speed Racer or something, where it's like, are you ready to accept this frightening inheritance, Akira?
yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
it. It's but another thing that I like about it is it's kind of like why one of the things people say is a charm about One Piece is the goofy character designs. But it's like,
Hmm.
dude, back in the day, you want somebody to look like a thug, you drew them with like what looked like a face that got hit by a frying pan, like goofy grin, this big, hat popped like that, like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm a gang member.
The
You're
the
my other friend, the delinquent guys.
The thugs in Devilman remind me of the Gangrene Gang from Powerpuff Girls. They're like the
Yeah.
same designs.
And what's funny is like the series opens with something very similar to JoJo, where it's like here's just some ancient prehistoric backdrop, and then you just see these like fairies. So it's like very like Berserk. All
Hmm.
these fairies just start flying around. These monsters come out and they start fighting and consuming each other and stuff. And it's like I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, this is very Berserk.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
wow. And you're like
Berserk
this
stole from this
artwork.
a lot.
Like freaking, it's one of those things where you're like, wow, this art's really great, and then you see the delinquents, and you're just like,
Yeah.
all the budget went into somewhere. Like, but what's funny is I think it was a visual trope of the time. Like,
Yeah.
you drew. I mean, the protagonist, him and his, the two guys look exactly the same, except one has white hair.
Yeah.
That's why I like the anime where they truly distinct, like make a distinction between the two of them
Yeah.
through the designs. Whereas with the manga, it's just like you have white hair Akira.
Yeah. They really put so much into the creature designs in this, but the humans really don't have much going for them as far as from a design perspective goes. They're not terribly detailed. But let's just talk about that first chapter cuz like okay, so imagine you're sitting there, you're a kid in like 1971 reading Weekly Shonen magazine and some first chapter of a manga shows up and it's literally just imagery setting the scene for the world. You have no idea what this is about. It's like the beginning of a fucking Terrence Malick movie who hasn't even making movies at that point, so you would have no context, where it's literally just like this prehistoric thing where demons are fighting dinosaurs and like it's all this like visual chaos. There's no dialogue, no characters or whatsoever, and you don't even realize that it's about humans until chapter 2, which would have come out the next
Yeah,
week.
it's kind of like JoJo's, where you're like, when do the punch ghosts come in? You're like, shh, they're talking about Aztec people and how they like sacrifice each other in a mask. Like
Yeah,
it all come together
but like
eventually.
it's like with Devilman, there's no context whatsoever in the first
Yeah.
chapter. Like you don't know what it's going to be about, which I think is
And
really
what's
cool and
crazy
kind of
though,
daring.
and what is also really interesting about the first chapter is the fact that if you've already have an awareness of the series and like how it ends and everything that happens, the first chapter actually sets the stage really well. You have the fairy things combining together to make that one like monster force that fights back the rest of the monsters. And I
Hmm.
think that was probably inferred to be Amon,
Yeah, okay, that makes
that
sense.
glowing white monster in the first chapter that fights back.
Was
Because I
that,
wouldn't think that was Satan.
you don't think that's
It
Satan?
was all the fairies came together to form one monster,
Okay, and
and
that's.
I think that was Amon,
Hmm.
because I don't think Satan would have like had any like obviously Satan had no horse or bet in the game other than getting back at God.
Yeah.
Amon was the one that was like protect the weak, so all the weak came together to form that one strong thing,
Okay, that would make a lot of
and I
sense.
think that's where so like the author does it. It's kind of like that movie Fantasia. Like you don't have any words going on. It's just like it's back in the day.
Yeah.
Midas power.
Okay. So yeah, like I'm looking at the first chapter, and yeah, all the demons are killing the fairies, and then so this is actually like, I think it's just very metaphorical. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
look like Amon. Yeah, so it can. I think it's definitely meant to be interpreted that way. And he leads this army of demons against the other demons of these Devilman, basically. But like the whole thing is so metaphorical. Like when you
Well, I
look at,
mean, there were no devil man back then.
yeah, yeah, but like that's what kind of ended up happening, where he has this army of Devilmen that fight. But it's the
Oh yeah, I mean
representation of
in the
the,
series, I thought I meant the opening chapter.
yeah,
There, yeah.
but it
But
all
no,
kind
yeah, I get what
but it all kind of represents the same struggle of like these two different planes fighting over this planet of Earth. Very, very biblical. And what's also fucking interesting about it for me is how the bad guys win essentially. Like Rio Satan ends up defeating Akira, and well, yeah, it's debatable of like whether morality is even a factor once all of the humans are dead. Like, what are they fighting over once all of the humans have been killed? Like, we've lost our point of reference. But
I
Akira
think that was
versus,
kind of the point, though.
yeah, where it's like the conflict shouldn't matter to us anymore. And at the end, when like Akira and Rio are just lying there and like you don't know what's going on until it zooms out and you see that Akira's just been completely cut in half. It actually, I feel the ending of Naruto is kind of a callback to it when Sasuke and Naruto fight and they're
Yeah,
laying next to each other talking and you realize like both of their hands have been severed.
yeah. No, no, I think that could very well be a callback to Devilman.
But
If not, like the dude read it and just really vibed off of it.
how
I mean,
about,
what's crazy too is like look at like Jonathan and Dio. Dio's
mm-hmm.
bragging that he beat Jonathan, and then he's just like Jonathan,
Yeah.
and then he's like bummed out. So it's kind of like one thing I want to talk about that was interesting that leads to that is the duality of the you have a protagonist and an antagonist, or like Light and L, and then in this one it'd be Akira and what's his name? Oh, Satan's
Akira and Rio.
Ryo. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like Kaneda with
Tetsuo.
Tetsuo, but it's kind of I've seen this trope kind of reappear in other series where it's like you have like the two forces where they both kind of started in a similar position and then like end up morally on different ends of the horizon.
Guts and Griffith.
And yeah, Guts and Griffith,
It's
you
a
know,
huge
and
influence.
and what's great about it is you could see like progress through the protagonist that could be similar to the antagonist, or it justifies like more of why you root for one character than another by saying their struggles
Yeah.
to overcome that like gap. But what's kind of cool about Devilman in that regard though is like it kind of fast tracks a lot of that and it just kind of boils it down. I mean, it's only 5 volumes, or what
Yeah.
was it? Yeah, it's 5 volumes. So
It's an easy
you
read.
know, yeah, Berserk's like really long, but it's like I already just rereading it and watching it, I could already see like so many series that have at least taken a bite out of it. Like Yu Hakusho definitely is inspired by
Mhm.
Devilman for sure. You cannot argue that.
Yeah.
It may have started. The guy may have been like Kanuku Man was my inspiration to switch Yu Hakusho over into a serious manga. but from there it's like you got to think like the dude essentially went from making a comedy series into like a Devilman-esque like battle shonen,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I mean it goes, I don't know, there's a little bit more than just like beyond the whole like they both have devils in them and they fight. It's
Yeah.
like I feel like Ryzen's character was kind of a nod back to Amon as a certain thing. Like I just I don't kill humans, and
Yeah.
everybody's like he's really strong. We don't know why he doesn't kill humans, but he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. That demon that has that sort of ethical um kind of, well, basically has moral qualms about killing humans and has an I like kind of identifies with them in a way and kind of like alienates his other demon peers because of that, and it kind of splits the demon world in two. Very similar
Like
plot
Devil May
lines.
Cry has that. That's the reason why Dante and Virgil even exist in Devil May Cry is because their dad was a demon who didn't like other demons for messing with humans.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know. It's an interesting trope too because it's taking something inherently evil, like the bad guy stuff, and pulling it onto the good guys territory. And it's kind of fun to see a protagonist use the tools of evil against it. Is another thing too. That
Yeah.
and it kind of like anti-heroes only get to do that too. So it's like I feel like Devilman was at least pretty inspirational for a lot of future anti-heroes we would have, or characters that aren't typically just like goody two shoe protagonist.
Definitely, definitely.
Like how Kira starts off as a goody two shoes protagonist, like I'm just average and I'm nice, and then it's like, nah,
Yeah.
nah, we're gonna this is the protagonist. He's a badass.
I also like how he becomes a complete dick and it's not really treated like a conflict. Like the main girlfriend character isn't like, oh my god, you're changing for the worse. She's like, okay, so I'm officially attracted to you now. Like you're making my pussy wet.
Yeah, like in the manga more so. Like
Yeah.
in the show, like at least in Crybaby, like it was more like she was just busy being popular girl to where like, she just acknowledged like, yeah, you changed. It's weird, but I'm busy. But in the
Yeah.
manga, she's like not as
Like, oh
busy.
my god, let me suck your dick, please. Yeah. Like
Yeah, so
basically
it's
that's what
like
it was. Like she even said she's like, you're really turning me on, basically. Like she's basically like used this like typical like horny firecracker chick. I don't know if that trope was really a thing back then, but it's kind of like weird to see it being used, I guess, in like the context of this
it's a
weird.
trope used now, but
Yeah.
not I don't think it was probably used a lot back then where it's like he was a not, but now he's a hot.
Yeah.
Does that make me a thought? Like I don't know. Like
uh
I was
yeah.
watching Close Enough, that regular show on HBO, and like the first episode of the new season was about the protagonist getting super jacked, and one of the jokes was his wife being like, "Oh my god, he's just so amazing." So it's like I don't know. It is actually kind of funny to see like the bonk and the horny stick on the other side of the row. Like you make your he kind of Captain America'd out in a in a teenage boy way, I guess. Like, oh,
Yeah,
what's going on?
Miki needs to go to horny jail several times in Devilman.
So, did you read the manga or watch the Netflix adaptation
I did.
first?
I well, I mean, I read the manga way back in high school, but like
Okay.
honestly, I was so fucking like pumped with work. So I had watched the anime recently, so I watched it about a month ago. But then for the
Yeah.
rewatch and the reread, I was double fisting. So I'd like be reading it on my
Yeah.
computer while the anime was going on my TV. uh,
Honestly, I kind of did they overlapped a little bit too, but
yeah,
it was like one of those things where for 5 volumes worth of content to be condensed into a 10 episode span, I wasn't disappointed. I actually
yeah.
liked the pacing of the anime a lot.
See, I
Uh,
didn't watch
it was
this.
interesting.
I
What was that?
didn't watch the '70s anime, but the '70s anime was 38 episodes. Like
Oh,
how?
I'm sure. Like I would have watched that one, but I figured the one on Netflix is the one actively that's already still trying to make money. We'll go
Yeah,
with that one. And also, like, I want to see how well this plot line could hold up after so many years. I mean, for some reason, we're just opening time capsules of series on our podcast nonstop. Like, all right,
yeah.
in this episode, we're gonna do a series that's older than most of
Well, yeah.
us.
I mean, the genius of
Seventy
Crybaby.
two.
Yeah, Yeah, well, the genius of Crybaby is that it kind of updated the stuff that needed to be updated, like some of the portrayals of women and stuff like that, and like the dudes weren't as much like '50s bad guys with their shivs. They were more like, like modern day like rappers and stuff. Like they were just kind of like punk like thug kids. But like what's it?
Those characters did get a bump up too in this version.
Yeah, no, dude, the rapping was so good, but like the music was so good, but like it updated like the stuff that needed to be updated, but it was so true to Go Nagai's vision of humanity and like his weird sick sense of humor, like the chick sprouting mouths from her titties and biting people's heads
Yeah,
off. Like that is the most like Go Nagai thing imaginable. That guy goes balls to the fucking wall.
or the chick who like just shoots all the goo out and melts people.
Yeah,
Like that was one that is just made it like it's like a cameo or Easter egg in the anime towards the end, but then like that was a whole plot line for like a little bit in the manga, whereas this chick who is like getting picked on by these bitches at her school, and they like rip her shirt off and she melts them.
yeah, yeah.
And like there's people like, did that chick just melt them? And I'm just like, dude, like you are a kid in the '70s, and your parents are like, manga's bad for you, and you're like, is this bad for you? Look at
Well,
that.
that's what's so interesting about it. Because okay, so in the early '70s, there was this thing going on called the Japanese New Wave, which was a cinematic and cultural and sexual revolution going on in Japan, where there are these filmmakers like fucking fuck it. I used to be so much more like knowledgeable about this, but there were filmmakers like Nagisa Oshima was one of them. There was another one that was really big. I can't remember his name, but there were a few like filmmakers coming out and making Japanese films that were a lot more sexual and a lot more violent than like what had been like done. Like it was almost like what was going on in
Like
this.
the interview guy.
The who
Interview
audition?
or audition,
No,
yeah.
he was more '90s. I'm talking about like
Oh,
early '70s. So
oh, sorry. Okay.
so who's the other guy? It was Nagisa Oshima was one of the big ones, and the other big one was I'll probably remember the name after this, but it was a whole movement going on where they were making these movies that were so much more sexual and more violent. It was like the '70s cinema of America, but more so. So it was
Yeah, it
like
was Grindhouse.
yeah, but no, but it was in the art film world. It wasn't like trying to be sleazy. It was bringing the sex and the violence up front into the like the art film circles. Like in the realm of the senses is one that like had this like horrific scene of a woman cutting off a man's penis and like had like really hardcore sex scenes. But that was like a movie that showed at Cannes. Like it wasn't like the sleazy grindhouse thing. It was trying to bring the stuff into the more like
Oh, like
highfalutin.
Antichrist.
Yeah, yeah, like Lars von Trier is very influenced by the Japanese New Wave, and I feel like Devilman like fits so perfectly culturally into all of this, of like almost like an extension of the Japanese New Wave through manga by just like pushing the boundaries of what can be done in the context of a shonen manga, just as far as like going balls to the wall with the sex and violence and just
But
making it as
here's the
extreme
thing,
as possible.
that the way he's able to like even drive it home even more successfully, like being able to do that, is he doesn't even just do it in a way where it's just like a guy walking through a city and seeing a bunch of people do sleazy stuff. Like there is a narrative reason as to why a lot of these, well, it's, and he doesn't even think of it as like per se sleazy in his series. Like he's just like the, like you could talk, what was it, like Lord of the Flies, they talk about like the id and
It and the
the other
super
part of the,
ego and
yeah,
the
like the
ego and the super
ego
ego.
and yeah, and it's like you kind of look like at Devilman that way. Like at some point, they're id, some point they're super ego,
Yeah,
or the emphasis on it is like the further the carnal desires thing. Like it's not even just like about the sex; it's about like just any way to stimulate and like anything that has to do with nature and survivability and stuff like that. Like one scene that really gets me, and it was like in the anime only, was when like the dude takes that one chick hostage after she becomes a devil, and like she like bangs him and like kills him and just keeps banging him after she killed him. Like he was
yeah,
gonna take her hostage to like try and have his way with her, and it like totally flipped on him.
yeah.
and just like the fact that they just hold it at like they make you watch for like 4 or 5 seconds after it's like done, just seeing her like still going at it, and I'm just like, see, I would think that's gratuitous if I watched that out of context, but by this point, it's like made very clear, like to fight these creatures or to even understand their world, you have to, I guess, lower yourself to just completely be controlled by your carnal desires or whatnot. And
Yeah.
that's and murdering and sexing are things that creatures do.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I feel like the whole satanic or the Sabbath scene where they're all dancing and like letting themselves go and like drinking and stuff and doing drugs is almost like sort of Go Nagai's way of like embracing these like sort of like what had previously been seen as like sinful or like socially unacceptable behaviors, and acknowledging that there was kind of a new wave where like sin is becoming more accepted, I guess, and that like Satan is almost like taking over the world. But I don't think Go Nagai necessarily thinks that's a bad thing. I think he's more just like acknowledging that we're more open about things that used to be considered like more taboo. So it's like Rio winning in the end could almost be considered like the victory of like a new wave of like id fueled sort of open like um not necessarily hedonism, but more of an expression of like the changing of Japanese culture, the things that need to change about it, and like the openness that we should have about things like sex and violence and like the ugly evils of the world that we would always repress. And in that way, you know who he reminds me of most as far as like filmmakers go?
um, Shoot, go.
George A. Romero.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I,
And
I can see that.
I like I very much feel that like towards the end when like the humans are like killing each other and sacrificing each other to the demons, and like there's this witch hunt of like if you're a demon we're gonna fucking murder you. Where like George Romero's like premise was always like humans are going to be scarier than any monsters. The way humans treat each other during a crisis and the way we turn on each other is more terrifying than the crisis itself. And I think Go Nagai was definitely making a very similar point that Romero was making around the same time.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the fact that everybody talks big game about solidarity and stuff, and then in these universes, when something big like a calamity happens, it really tests human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like his, I think what was it? Dawn of the Dead was mostly about consumerism, right? And how he
Yeah.
wanted to do it. He saw like a bunch of people going to the mall once, and was just like, what if they were all just zombies?
Fucking zombies. Yeah, they're just shambling
Yeah.
around mindlessly, going from store to store,
They grab you, they turn you into one.
pretty
And it's
much.
like, and like, but in Devilman, it's like, it's not so much like, oh, you're just part of the zombie horde now. It's like you are either food or you are eating food.
Hmm.
And it's like, that's why it's like kind of a fun series to kind of pick apart, because there's a lot of different things going on with it, whether he intended to or not. Like, you could think about like how everybody's like, like Ryu totally chess masters the whole thing, whether he knows it or not. Like I
Hmm.
think in the anime they make it more clear that he's like the chess master character,
Yeah, but he
because like
doesn't
they
know what
mess
he's
with like,
doing. He's not conscious
well,
of what he's doing.
in the manga
Yeah,
he's not conscious of it, but it feels like in the anime he's more conscious of it.
yeah, he knows more what he's getting at. He's more like straight up evil and like more manipulative in the anime, but in the manga, he's almost as much of a victim as anybody else is.
Yeah, I think they sansed away with that, because you'd have to add in like a whole explanation on how he lost his memory and all that stuff or whatever.
Yeah, but that
Well,
was
I
a
mean, they
great
did
scene
they did
though.
that they did that in the anime too. See, that's the interesting thing. In the anime, they made him born in South America,
Hmm.
and then in the manga, his origins were unknown. No, yeah, he's a weird character. It's like one of those weird things where it's like they kind of like Seymour Skinnered his like backstory towards the end, and you're just like, I could have done without this. I mean, you could literally just for the longest part, I was convinced that Satan just possessed him at that Sabbath, and like he
Mhm.
was just unknowingly going that route.
Yeah.
But then they pull it out that he was always Satan to begin with.
Yeah, he wasn't even Rio. Like he was just like placed on that earth to take the place of this kid that had nothing to do with him.
Yeah, which is why it's kind of like, like BFF moments, like towards the end's kind of wholesome, where it's just like, I gave you Amon, the greatest demon out of all the demons' body, because I like you, Akira. We're friends, dude. And he's just like,
My entire family's dead because of
okay.
you, and like literally not just my entire family, but my entire species. So that's not really that doesn't really even out. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Rio.
the anime had to add the whole like his mom was in the freaking bad guy like body thing to
Oh
it.
yeah.
Like the only series I've read that has body horror similar to this series would be like Parasite, which Parasite's totally the guy who wrote Parasite definitely probably read Devilman.
Oh,
I mean, they're very
100%.
similar.
It's a very,
Um,
very similar. We got to do Parasite, dude. I really want to do
I mean,
Parasite.
we did Devilman. I mean, it'd be the same thing. Would they be pretty similar? No,
Yeah.
that'd be different enough. Well,
Yeah.
I like Parasite. We're gonna do Parasite anyways.
Parasite copies a lot of the plot elements of Devilman, but I think it's thematically getting at something pretty different.
Well, yeah, because Parasite's about humanity and like all that stuff. That's a whole nother episode.
Well,
Whereas
no,
I feel like,
Parasite's just about a young teenage boy's relationship with his hand.
yeah,
That's all that show's
I
about.
wait for our lives to be over. Man,
uh,
but no, like that's a funny thing about Devilman though is like that it's got like that when you start it you're like, oh, like devils, but they're prehistoric. Oh, okay, and then it's like, nah, straight up God shows up and it's just like, nope, this is done. And you're like, oh, so there is a God, at least in their world.
mhm.
And apparently he just shows up every once in a while to just throw a bunch of rocks at the earth and fuck with Satan. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's pretty much what it boiled down to is say like, Rio's just like, God just hates me. And because of that he picks on me. And I'm just like, then go somewhere else, dickhead. Why do you gotta hang out on Earth if he's just picking on you? And
Mm,
it's like Ryu wasn't even a demon, even like he was Satan. He was an angel apparently,
yeah.
and the Earth just happened to have devils on it, and he was like, I'm just gonna kick it here.
Androgynous titty
So
angel.
yeah, that was the thing. You could definitely like. I feel like that alone was one of the biggest. Like, well, all right, we can't say that. I was gonna say that I feel like that part of his design was definitely an inspire for like at least Griffith in some way.
Oh, definitely.
Like all you hear about is how they say like Satan's the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. He's an angel. That's like a species you never see. They're made directly
Okay,
by God. Blah, blah.
see, you know what we need? We need to get the original Devilman anime, and we need to get the guys who do Venture Brothers to parody dub it.
Oh man. Oh no. Oh no. They need something to do, right?
Yeah, I mean Venture Brothers is canceled, which like fuck them. Well, fuck whoever canceled it. Like
That
canceling
would suck.
Metalocalypse is one thing, but canceling Venture Brothers is like a direct stab in my heart.
The guys who made Aqua Teen did it.
They canceled it.
Mike
Oh
Mike
yeah,
Laza. Yeah, the
because
Aqua Teen Hunger Force guys were the ones who canned it
see, dude,
because they're in charge of Adult Swim.
I just want Netflix to pick it up and do like a movie finale. Like that's all I want. Just do it.
People have talked about HBO possibly picking up Venture Bros.
As long as someone picks it up, I don't think we need a whole nother season. I think there's enough plot lines that you could wrap them up in a 2-hour movie and make a really satisfying conclusion.
Oh yeah, I think the problem is when it comes down to like either they're asking for too much money to produce it or too much time, or I don't know the exact specifics for it. I mean, there's got to be some outlying reason why they wouldn't re-up Venture Bros. I mean, they re-upped like Mr. Pickles and stuff like that.
Probably
But
because
I
the
mean, maybe
turnaround is so high. Like it's so inconsistent. Like when they make a season, like I don't know, like they're just kind of. I
they already
feel
have Rick and Morty to deal with that.
yeah, and Rick and Morty is so much more of a moneymaker. Like how often do you see Venture Brothers merch at Hot Topic? Not as much
I
as
don't
Rick and
really see
Morty.
hot topics in general.
Oh yeah,
But I don't know. Like the Venture Bros subreddit's pretty active. I mean,
oh
there's that
yeah.
one guy who's constantly adding items to St. Cloud's room every day. If you haven't seen that,
Well, I mean the 12 of us are really passionate fans.
no, most definitely. But none of us will pay for anything.
Exactly.
Make a new season so I could pirate it already.
uh, anyway, this has been our episode on Venture Brothers. So okay, do we have anything else to
Well,
say on
I
Devilman
think
or like?
I think it was a solid series. Like definitely one of my favorite horror series. And I'm a pretty big horror manga fan. So going back and rereading this that was pretty cool. Like I haven't read since high school. It's definitely a series for a high school dude. Like
Yeah,
you're
this is
like,
one of
man,
those
there's
like
tits, there's blood, there's everything I need in this.
if I could pick like 5 series to get like a younger like 14-year-old high schooler that's like getting into that shit like into manga, that would be one of the 5.
Hypothetically, because you don't want to admit that you're damn near giving like you're saying that you give a 14-year-old damn near pornography.
I would. I'm that cool.
You'd have to make sure that you pull it out of a stump in the middle of the
Yes.
forest in a plastic bag.
I bring the kid out like into the middle of the forest. I'm like, hey kid, you ever read Devilman? And he's just like sitting there. He's like, this isn't even fucking English. He's like, oh yeah, they never printed it. But
I got Devilman Lady.
yeah. uh,
All
but
right.
but this
Well,
this is the kind of like formative thing that I would like want to like because like okay like everybody who's getting into manga or at least like more like the mature side of manga, they're all going to read Berserk. Some of them are going to read Gantz, but like how many people are fucking reading Devilman? But like Devilman did all of it first. Like you fucking Yusuke Murata is so influenced by Devilman. Just look at the designs in One Punch Man. Fucking Yoshihiro Togashi, Junji
yeah.
Ito even. Like I don't think
Oh yeah.
Junji yeah, I don't think Junji Ito would really be here without Devilman. Like he just took some of Go Nagai's ideas to the extreme.
JoJo's probably wouldn't be either.
Yeah. Yeah. Like this I know he did Akira, but like I think Akira is more culturally influential, but I think just in terms of like subsequent manga series, this might be the most influential manga we ever do on the podcast. Unless we do Dragon Ball.
Or Ishida no Joe.
Or
No,
Ashita no
Kanuku Man.
Cho.
Kanuku Man. Kanuku Man would win.
You think so?
That's probably hands down one of the most in eh, like I guarantee you, if you were to do a poll for manga artists in the past like 20 years and ask them to list like their top 5 favorite series, Kaneko Man would pop up on their list, like every single one of them, like whether it be 5 or 1.
Yeah. Okay. So
At least the older guys.
just to address the 3 fans that we have, I know we haven't uploaded in a while, but that is because we tried to do an episode on Doro Hedoro, and we recorded it like 3 different times and had technical issues every single time. So we just kind of scrapped it because we talked it to death. And any conversation we could have on it now would just be dispassionate because we talked about it so fucking much. But maybe we will release a lost Doro Hedoro episode later or like try it again. But for anybody who is psyched to hear us talk about that manga, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Instead, we are going to do something else next week.
Lizard Man good. Mushroom Man good. Gyoza Girl good.
Yes.
That's Doro Doro. That's
Yes.
pretty much it.
Yes. Next week, I was thinking, do you want to do like Old Boy or something?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do Old Boy. Because like I'm honestly I'm gonna read the manga and I'm gonna watch both versions of the movie. So I'm gonna watch the Park Chan Wook version and the fucking Spike Lee version.
I keep forgetting there's a manhwa for that.
Well, it's a
Or
manga.
manga.
Yeah.
Manga.
Yeah, I really want to do Old Boy just because like I have no idea what the manga is going to be like. Apparently, both movies are very loosely adapted.
All right, but after Old Boy, I get to pick. We'll do like
Well,
I don't know.
after Old
We'll
Boy,
do like a Kuroko's Basketball or something.
well, like I was telling, or do Fruits Basket or like some shit like that.
I
But
really
like
like when they make the food and they eat it and their clothes blow off. When it's an adult, of course.
yeah. For episode 10, I do want to do that like manga awards idea that I had though.
Yes.
Yeah. So episode 9 will be Old Boy, and then episode 10 will be our special 10th anniversary episode because it's number 10. 10's important. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and sign off.
The
Thank
deck episode.
the what?
The deck episode.
The deck episode. Okay, so thank you for joining us. Definitely watch the anime, but more importantly, read the manga.